Welcome back to Sports Therapy, episode number 13. Today we did something a little out of the norm and brought on our first guest, fellow YouTuber UrinatingTree. If you haven't heard of him, just know, dude is probably going to be on the YouTube football Mount Rushmore at the end of the day. His channel is one that's incredibly unique and incredibly successful. Me and KTO have actually met up with Tree along with fellow YouTuber 5 Points on several occasions at different little events, so this isn't the first time we've met. Also, I know myself and KTO have been featured on their podcast, The Dumpster Fire, on a couple of different occasions. Anyway, today's video is more of an interview to learn about Tree's YouTube journey and to get his thoughts on the current landscape of the NFL and college football. Also, I want to apologize for there not being a show last week. That was completely on me. I've honestly got a lot going on right now in my life. Nothing bad, just a lot of stuff. And that's the reason there wasn't a show last week and why I haven't been on social media or uploaded to my regular channel. I'll go into more detail about it on next week's show, so make sure you guys tune in for that. But now that we got that out the way, it's time to jump in to episode 13.
No, so, we have this community on YouTube, these football YouTubers. And this is our first feature, our first interview, if you can call it that. His name is UrinatingTree, and he calls himself Schlosser. I don't know if that's his first or last name or.
It's just a general nickname. It's nothing it's not related to anything I do.
Okay, so Schlosser.
But just
I think I'm saying that right.
Tree works.
Or
yeah,
Tree,
Schlosser
yeah.
is the right way.
Tree, yeah.
Which is a funny name. UrinatingTree is a funny name. So
yeah, it's not. It doesn't even have this amazing backstory. It's literally just a name I thought up on Xbox Live when I was 15.
I knew it was an Xbox Live name. I knew it was an Xbox Live
it's just name. Literally, it's just like, it'd be a funny name, UrinatingTree, and I just ran with it. It's like trying to be an edgelord when you're 15. That's literally all it is.
Yeah.
And so you've got over 422,000 subscribers.
I know. I mean,
on your YouTube channel.
I did not imagine that 4 years ago. It's just
142 million views on your channel.
That's mind-boggling to me. Like 142 million people watch my shit. Jesus. Like I'll look at the Social Blade stuff. It's like, no, there's no way this is real.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Killing
it's weird.
The game too. Oh, keep going with your intro. I wanna...
Yeah, my great intro. And then so you have a weekly show with 5 Points, the Dumpster Fire, that you've been doing for I think almost
a couple
2
years
years
at least.
Yeah, and then I think your most most heavily anticipated show out of all of us is This Week in Sports Ball.
Sports Ball for sure.
Your weekly show during the NFL season where you go over, you recap the NFL week, almost in like a, you put like the NFL music behind it and do like the primetime style, and it's just killer. I mean, there's a reason why it's probably the most hyped up show. Like the views you get to start like the first few hours are insane.
It's like the base is just like at least has a good floor, I feel like.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Sure.
So with that being said, I did want to ask you, because I know we've talked about this briefly when we've met up, but you were kind of inspired by video games to kind of start your channel.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you got going with like YouTube in general. So I kind of want to hear your roots as to like how you got started with YouTube.
How I really got started in movie making was there was a game in, I think, around 2005. It was called The Movies by Lionhead Studios. It was a game where you would just make your own movies. It had its own pre-rendered scenes. You would just make your own. You can add voiceovers and fancy stuff to it.
Yeah.
I thought it was like really cool. It's like, you know what? It's a random creative release. I mean, it was really bad. I mean, you could probably find a couple of them out there if you look hard enough. But for the most part, it was just like me, I think, like as a teenager, just going crazy.
Is it called half-ass cinema or something?
No, that's something different. That's something different. But like that was how I first really got my like feet wet per se. And the editor on that program was terrible. Like it was worse than Windows Movie Maker.
When was that?
It was like it was like an own editor, like for whatever reason. Like they had their own editor into it, and like.
So you came into it from like a filmmaking standpoint.
No, it was like a video game. It was a video game that was released, I think, about 15 years ago.
That is
so
insane.
that's why I like kind of like blended into that, and then this was before I knew about YouTube.
That was right around, you're saying 2005-ish?
2005, 2006.
Yeah, so that's right when YouTube was just about to get going.
Yeah, it was like it's in its infancy.
Yeah.
So how long were you making content on there before
like
you
a couple
jumped
months.
on YouTube?
It wasn't anything
just
crazy.
for fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't like I wasn't thinking of making it as a career. It was just like a hobby of mine.
What then inspired your kind of YouTube start?
Well, I remember like when I first found out about YouTube. This was like late 2006. I was a freshman in college. So I was just like, okay, I wanted to kind of get into TV broadcasting. I remember like being like a anchor on like the morning announcements. And I thought like, this would be really cool as a career. So I decided to try and chase the dream. I don't know how well that worked out, but I mainly remember looking up this guy who recently had started out. His name was the Angry Video Game Nerd, or Angry Nintendo Nerd as he was at the time. Like, he's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, you know what? It'd be a fun creative release, just like randomly doing stuff on old Sega Genesis games I used to play. So there was it was like 06, 07, and this was like something I just did for fun. I think I got like a couple hundred or a couple thousand, nothing too crazy. But it was just like a little hobby of mine.
Yeah.
So it did not age well. So I would not recommend looking that up. So I make it way over the top, and it just it's not good. Like the vocal quality's bad, the audio quality's bad. It's like I'm just sitting there watching in the background. It's like, Jesus Christ. I thought this was worthy of release. What the fuck?
Well,
but
you know what? Sorry, I was just gonna say what I've really always liked about your content is like it feels like you're willing to try things.
Oh yeah,
just because you like to be funny, you like to just say things, and so that's kind of your style. So
I think the key, like with experimentation, is like some of my most successful stuff has come from experimentation. The Haters Guides was my first real experiment per se. The sports stuff in general was an experimentation. This Week in Sports Ball, I considered it as an experimentation. I didn't think I'd be doing it every week. This was like 2017.
yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just do like once every week, see how it goes? And sometimes the craziest stuff happens. Like stuff flops. Like that's standard in experimentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it keeps stuff fresh, and it also it makes things different for me as like an editor or something like that, because so I'm not making the same thing every week, because that just gets really just mind numbing after a while.
Yeah. Hey, so when you started out, like I can see based on what you already said, you started out as a hobby, right?
Yeah.
So you wasn't taking it like super seriously, like as far as like a career. But now that it's popping the way it's popping and you've been doing it for so long, like, do you think about like the future of UrinatingTree?
I would feel like more or less. I use it as more. I've always been trying to take it like one day at a time. Just go where the wind flows.
Yeah.
That's how I've always been.
That's probably a peaceful way to look at it.
Yeah. This year's been really weird, especially.
For sure.
I mean, you had that huge dip in March through June, July, and you were sitting there thinking like, okay, am I even going to make it through this? Because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but SeatGeek was one of my major sponsors. And
Yeah.
guess what happened? Like, nobody's going to live sports, so it's a shame they were a good sponsor.
Yeah, SeatGeek was solid, man. It was A1.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always noticed about your content is you play the NFL clips almost exclusively without any sort of, like, you're not fabricating it at all. So you're probably getting a lot of your videos claimed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing almost all of them.
NFL usually gets claimed. NFL gets claimed. MLB usually kind of claims half and half. NHL claims. NBA really doesn't claim. It mostly depends on the footage I use, but most of the time, especially with sports ball, immediately claimed by the leagues.
I want to explain this for the audience. So what we do is weird because there's no real. It's kind of a gray area where if you watch before an NFL game, it says like, don't use our content. It's strictly prohibited, but we're using it and making content with it. It's this like fair use thing that I think all of us sort of understand, but at the same time, it's like, why do some of these get claimed? Why do some not? Not entirely sure, but we make this content and a lot of the times we make nothing off of it, even if it gets millions of views and could get like tens of thousands of dollars for whoever gets the money, usually the NFL.
That's why
that's just kind of the game we play. Yeah.
I mean, people bitch about the sponsors, but that's the only way people want to survive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, people really don't get the sponsorship thing because I mean, I get like it can be an annoyance in a video, but it's silly because it's like you can skip past it.
Oh yeah.
Or it's not like it's just an ad, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I did like I was into like college advertising and radio, like radio ads. So that's kind of like how I kind of did my stuff too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you do
it
good on
kind of
your
reminds
ads.
me of that. So
I did want to go back to you kind of built up. I looked at your channel, and the oldest video on UrinatingTree on the channel is 10 years ago.
yeah.
And it's
Good
like a
God.
Superman 64
Yeah, those
video.
are like old re-uploads technically. So like
Yeah.
I mainly did it as like, oh, I'll re-upload some old stuff that's not on
Hey,
YouTube.
how long you been doing this?
Shit, like 06.
Good
But
God.
like I've been on and off. Like I took like years off. Like I did not expect to come back.
I don't
to this.
care, man. You are OG.
He's the
for
OG
real. yeah, real
I remember
talk.
when YouTube was literally the Wild West.
Yeah. How was
When
that?
you had like, vloggers as like the head, like Bohem and
I don't even know who that is.
Benetto, I think his name was. Lonely Girl 18 was the top sub
I've heard that name.
YouTuber.
I've heard that name before.
Yes, that is a very old name. Like she was like the big thing on YouTube.
Lonely girl.
Now it's T-Series, I think it is, out of India.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
PewDiePie.
corporate.
I'm somewhat familiar with T-Series. And everybody know PewDiePie. Yeah.
Oh
But-
yeah.
And so then your content sort of evolved because by like 2016-ish, I think, is your sports stuff popped off. And I think it's coincidentally a Browns video was
Oh,
your
yeah.
first video that popped off.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
And when that happened, because your views were probably like in the 5 to 10,000 range, if that, or and then all of a sudden this video hits and it goes kind of viral, if you want to call it that. What was going through your head at that time?
Well, actually, what happened was the Browns video didn't get much traction. Like the first video that really got traction for me was the Haters Guide to the 2017 NFL Playoffs. And by that point, I was expecting like I didn't do it for views. I was just like maybe get like a couple hundred, but like I was expecting maybe 400, 500, 600 views on it. Maybe get a couple people saying I sucked. Like that's the experimentation part.
yeah.
Yeah.
The one part thing I remember, like, waking up one morning, I think I had about 550 to 650 subscribers. Then I wake up the next morning, look at my numbers, I have 100 more subscribers than I did the night before. I'm sitting there like, wait,
What
what?
just happened? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell? And then I'm looking at the numbers. I think, like, I got, like, 10, 15, 20,000 views, which is completely abnormal for what I had. Like, because, like, the Browns video at the time, like, I just did is, like, I thought it would be a one-off. But I remember thinking, okay, it's probably just a fluke. So I did a Haters Guide to the Super Bowl, and it literally just, like, went even greater. I think it was, like, 50 to 60,000. And this is when, like, the sports community was pretty much in its infancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, maybe there's something here. I have to keep digging. And that's why I chose to pivot to sports.
Yeah.
Damn, that's dope.
It's
I didn't even
crazy
know
that
bro.
that 2016 rise, because I remember that's when I started my content on this channel on KTO, and I had a couple of videos sort of starting to pop off out of nowhere right around the start of the playoffs of that year, and I remember seeing your videos and they're recommended at the same time. So that was right around the same time. Like we kind of, both of us that popped off in that sports realm, if you will.
And that's the thing. Like, it wasn't even, like, deliberate. It was all accidental. It's just
Yeah.
like, wait, whoa, okay.
So then I have this question because I was curious. So how did you get into like your interest in sports and like just overall?
I remember, like, being a fan of it when I was a kid. Main thing was, I'm trying to think when the first time I really fell in love with, like, sports. I'd say it was probably, like, the old video games of the early 90s. Like, I remember, I think it was a cousin or like a relative. Like, he had this old Sega Genesis. And he would have, NHL 93, Madden 93, one of the old NBA games. I think it was like Bulls Lakers, I think it was. Or Bulls Blazers, sorry. Those games, I'd be like, wow, it's really nice. Like, Madden 93, you have the old school, like, sound effect. NHL 93, I was really a fan of. It was, like, really fluid. It was fun to play, and I'm like, wow, I really love it. And then you just go into sports, you watch it on TV. And then, being from Pittsburgh, it's like, let's root for the local teams.
Yeah.
So, Steelers, Penguins, Pirates.
Did you play any sports, bro?
I did, but I sucked. So, I mean, I was lazy.
What was the highest level of sports you played, though?
Probably high school, but I was a bench warmer. I played football my sophomore year, but I wasn't nowhere near ready for it.
Position?
So, center.
Play center? Okay.
Yeah. Is that a Pouncey jersey you're wearing?
No, it's actually just a playing jersey, but I do have a Marquise Pouncey jersey.
I don't know why I didn't see that. Yeah,
I do have a Marquise Pouncey jersey though.
I find it interesting that both of y'all, because I remember talking to you early on, KTO, and I watched the Angry Video Game Nerd, but it wasn't like a inspiration for me. You feel me? But I know both of y'all said that same thing, and I could tell, like when y'all say that, I could tell because like the way y'all edit. You know what I'm saying? And like the music and the sound and everything that goes into it, like y'all might not look at it like y'all coming at it from more of a filmmaking like point of view, but to me, when I look at it, that's what I'm seeing. Like the little nuggets and the little details in y'all's videos and the way y'all steer them, I think it's dope as hell, bro. But like, I think that's the way y'all approach it, and I think people that come from the school of Angry Video Game Nerd tend to do that a little bit more. And it's just a cool little nugget, man. It's a cool little thing that you can kind of pick out, like especially now that I know that. So that's fine.
Yeah. He made a video a few years back where he detailed how he made his videos and the process that went into it. And it was the most inspiring thing for my channel because it was just so detailed and so just about like making the product as perfect as possible. And so that's the only way that I knew how to approach making my videos. Yeah. So I guess I want to turn it over to Tree. How do you approach when you're making your content? Like, what's the process look like?
My process is mostly I like to treat it as an onion, use as layers. I mean, you start out and like do one section, try and perfect it as much as you can, go on to another. So usually the first thing would probably be a concept. Second would be just write everything out if I can. So it'd probably take like maybe a couple hours to a couple days, depending on, how deep I want to go into it. Mm-hmm. And then after that, vocals. So you probably have to do that, cut it down, save it, render it. Mm-hmm. And then you'd probably go into like hunting or gathering footage. I like to call it hunting because, I mean, it's a different animal in certain aspects. Yeah. Then you get to the editing. I feel like I do that in different tiers too. So my first aspect would be probably like the base editing, the general video in the background. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the most boring part of it because you have to just gather every single piece of it, organize it, and it's not hard. It's just time consuming. Yeah. And that's the annoying part. Yeah. Like that's the thing with editing. It's like once you get past the finishing product, everything's fine. It's just like everything that gears up through it. It's just not the most fun thing in the world. You have to have something to distract you with it.
That second part of the edit though is pretty damn fun, huh?
Yeah, the bells and whistles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You get to like I usually do like the newspaper clippings, any sort of text. Like any general like special effects or anything like that, I add that as the second part. And then your final piece would be music bed. Yeah. And then you have your completed product.
That's interesting.
Boom.
So I treat it like, try layers. Yeah. I would say.
Pretty much, I do my shit pretty much the same way. Mm-hmm. Not exactly the same layers, but I definitely approach it that way. I break it down. Yeah. I'm gonna do layer 1 and 2 today. I'll do layer 3 and 4 tomorrow, like in an ideal situation. Mm-hmm. Other than the situation where you got to get it out that same day. But generally
you have to treat it
down.
Piece by piece, or otherwise you're just going to be overwhelmed by it.
Best way to eat an elephant, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Piece by piece. Yes, sir.
How long does it take you to usually edit? Or like if you're starting a video, imagine today you're like, okay, here's my week 13 in sports ball. How long does that process take?
It varies. I'd say like sports ball, it usually takes me a couple days. But I know like I did most of my writing yesterday on it. So today I'll probably do vocals. And then I'll probably finish up like with just some bass editing. Tuesday I usually finish up bass editing and then get into, the bells and whistles. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. You're good.
But like I usually finish up by Wednesday afternoon. But I mean, in this situation, sometimes it takes a little later because, last week with the Steelers Ravens, Tuesday night football.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did think it was interesting. You're a pretty diehard pro sports fan, it seems like.
Yeah.
But do you not have any interest in college football or?
I do a little bit of college. Most of what college is, Pitt, and Pitt is it's pain.
Pitt is pain. Yes,
Yeah,
Pitt
Pitt
is
is.
pain.
They call it pitting for a reason. It's every time you think they are going to go up to the next echelon, they somehow choke it away or blow it in spectacular fashion. Every time. A bunch of people were saying earlier, like, they should have been ranked higher in the top 25. They get smacked by, I think it was Georgia Tech or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
And
do you
they
think?
lose like 3 or 4.
So has Pitt ever been like relevant in the top 10 even? Like I don't know anything about Pitt.
In terms of Pitt basketball, they have been, but every time they've usually choked. Like, have been a number 1 seed. They made it to the Elite Eight once, and they lost in a buzzer beater to Villanova. I think it was in 2009. And then they fell apart. Pitt football, no. Mostly been stuck in mediocrity for about 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough because I grew up in a college town with no pro sports team, so I was much more diehard college growing up. But you grew up in a pro sports town where the college team wasn't that good. So do you think that had an effect on you? Like, do you think you'd be a bigger college football fan if you grew up in that college town vibe or no?
I don't know. Maybe. I know a lot of people around here are fans of Penn State. So there's a little bit of that here, too. So there is a college influence, but it's not like a major college influence, I would say.
Where did you go to school?
I went to a smaller school called Point Park. So, and they didn't have like a college football team.
Yeah.
And they were like D3. So there was like no athletic influence whatsoever there.
Gotcha.
Man, I want to know this. What is, like, first and foremost, like, how you living, bro? Like, you taking care of yourself over there, man? Like, are you good?
I'm trying to. I mean, pandemic threw a lot of shit out of whack, but
Yeah.
I
what's
try to keep myself like physically active at least.
You staying okay? Like, what's a typical day in a life kind of look like? You know what I'm saying?
My typical day mostly involves I have a messed up sleep schedule because I've spent like 8 years in restaurant industry and it threw my circadian rhythm out of whack. Never really like kind of got out of it. So I'll wake up at like maybe 11. I won't go to bed till like 3 a.m. I'm a night owl. So like I won't work out till like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And I'll do most of my work like at 1, 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I'm
it's probably good, like, cause it's better when you do the work. I think in the morning, like, I mean, I'm usually getting up early to do it, but like when you do that, when you working when everybody sleep, I don't know, man. It's something about that. You're not being disturbed. Phone ain't ringing. You feel me?
Hey, that's the same thing as working at night, though. Because
that's what I'm
everyone's
saying.
asleep.
That's what I'm
I thought you
saying.
meant in the morning.
No, I'm saying regardless. When you working when everybody else not working and everybody else is like down for the count and you up, that's like the best time to get work done. So I respect it.
How much does that play an effect in like your mental game? Like, how much do you care about the views, and does it affect you, like what people say?
I feel like the best part of it is when I went from waiting tables like full time to doing this, leaving the restaurant industry. My main thinking was, okay, this is a huge risk, but I look at the type of stuff you're dealing with. You deal with a bunch of bullshit out of your control. You deal with assholes. You deal with not dealing with the same thing every single day. It's completely unpredictable. And you don't know how much like you're going to make in a given day. I mean, they're the same risks in terms of what you do in the restaurant industry.
That's so funny.
And the thing with like views and subscribers, the algorithm, my main goal is I want to create a quality product. And I feel like those things are secondary in terms to the stuff I'm putting out. Because if I focus more on, money, views, subs, I feel like people are going to notice that. And like if you try to become a slave to the algorithm and the numbers and the views, you're going to go insane.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people do, unfortunately.
I've been on the edge
because,
of it.
Yeah. And it gets like rough because like, okay, how do I want to get more views? That shouldn't be the question you ask yourself, because I feel like people want to see quality. They don't want to see something that comes out of a content mill or, something inauthentic. People want authenticity. That's what I feel like, at least.
I've always thought that your content, that's exactly what I get from your content. You've uploaded things like, I think recently you uploaded it was like the Fall Guys, the game. You just uploaded a random game, and in like any other circumstance, no people wouldn't do that because they'd be too scared to hurt their views or their main thing. And you still do it, and it still did good view, like pretty solid views wise compared to others. So
it did okay. I mean, most of the thing is I was just interested in like doing it. I might do it again, but at the same time, I feel like that works best as a novelty.
Yeah, mix it up. Do you think that's one of your better skill sets? Is kind of like you're not afraid to just do whatever, you're thinking about?
Maybe. Like the way I see it, it's mainly like I be privy to like trying to worry about, as I said, numbers, views, anything like that. If I want to upload something, I'll upload it. I mean, obviously, hopefully nothing heinous. But at the same time, like, what I want to do is just like try and evolve, I feel like. Because the thing with YouTube is I don't feel like I'm competing with like any other user or viewer or anything like that. I'm competing with myself. And you're trying to like, okay, how do I take this to the next level? How do I go further? How do I push farther? How do I increase my scale? Those are the questions I feel like I ask myself more often than not in terms of what I do. So in terms of like making risks, experimentation, I feel like that's the sort of like thinking that I get into it, at least.
I have a question for you. With leaving the restaurant industry, do you spend a lot more time in isolation, kind of like on your own, working by yourself?
Mm-hmm. It's a very lonely experience, especially with like the stuff we do.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's taken a toll?
Not really. Most of the time, like I try like with exercise, at least it allows me to get like sort of like disconnected from everything.
Yeah.
Because like with a YouTube, you don't really leave it. Like you don't like with a restaurant, you're able to leave, and
you clock out.
With there's something like this, it's something you can't really clock out of, if it makes sense.
Can't turn it. No, it make 100% sense. We know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially with this year, I think I may have made the right decision because, I mean, with stuff that's happened in the restaurant industry, like I'd be screwed if I were just solely restaurant industry.
Yeah, you're safer doing what you're doing now.
Oh yeah, I mean
that is insane to think.
Oh yeah.
It's insane to think. You never would have thought that when you left the restaurant industry. You never in a million years would have thought this would be the safer thing.
Oh, of course not.
That's crazy.
I mean, internet has huge risks. Like, I could lose most of what I do in a heartbeat just because, like, oh, YouTube doesn't like my stuff. Boom, banned.
Yeah, yeah. Or some dude that doesn't like what you've done. Like, I remember I was telling 5 Points the other, and you. Like, I had 2 copyright strikes on my channel earlier this year. Like in January. And it was like, I was like this close to just, you know what I'm saying? To just ceasing to exist. Just because some dude was mad. Like, and literally, that's what it was. And it was almost
pretty much
just like that. The internet is crazy, bro.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety with like doing this. If you're on that, like that line, like I think we all kind of ride that line a little bit with, especially like the NFL or whatever. Just with claims, even just.
I'm still waiting for the NFL to drop the nail and just like take me down because I mean, fair use is a little weird because like, I mean, it is a defense, but like, how much of a defense is it?
Yeah. I wonder, what do you think they think of our content? Like, do you think they view it as like, hey, they're getting views to help us, or do you think they're saying these guys are a problem and they want to take us out? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the NFL doesn't really need people like us. I mean, if you look at like, you know, the NBA, MLB, a little bit recently, NHL, like I feel like they are interested in it because like it promotes like a sort of like interest in fan relations. It allows them to get exposure. The NFL doesn't need that. The NFL's king. I mean, if you look at like how they dominated Game 6 of the NBA Finals, a nondescript Sunday Night Football game, puts up double the numbers of one of the biggest games in the NBA season. So, I mean, the NFL, it's not doing a good job, but it doesn't need to because the NFL is like a religion. Like, I don't know, like, how they're going to react or change, but, like, the money they make off of our content is a mere drop in the bucket compared to TV revenues, ticket revenues when that's available, valuations of franchises of hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, a couple $1,000s is nothing to them.
Yeah. Do you think they don't even view us? Like, they probably, someone knows who we are, but they mostly just don't even care. Do you think that's...
I disagree with that because if you look at their stuff, they emulate a lot of things that were introduced by people on YouTube. Like if you look at their channels, like the stuff that they doing now, especially on social media, like I know for a fact they saw a KTO video and was like, "Yo, we could do this. We own all the footage."
They started titling
like I really be
videos
feeling
like
like
my
that.
videos. I saw.
Yeah, like you see it, and it's like so they notice it for sure, or whoever's like in charge of doing this content notices it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always wondered what if something would happen, whether it be they look to like promote us and like use us as like tools, but like Tree said, we're so small in the grand scheme of how big the NFL is. It's like it doesn't really matter. So then, how long does this last? Like what we're doing? Like how is this years? Is it longer? Like what is this?
I honestly don't know. As I said, like, that's why I always take it just one day at a time. Every day I'm above water is a good day. That's at least how.
Yeah. Man, that caused a lot of anxiety for me, bro. Because like I think about it so much. I'm like, yo, what if next year I'm not here? You know what I'm saying? It make it hard to project into the future. Mm-hmm. And like until probably last month, Tree, this probably was the first time where I was like, you know what, man? Whatever. Like I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna plan as if this thing is not. This ride is not gonna stop.
That's how you have to do it. You can't treat it as like a long-term project because you don't know where like even YouTube's gonna be in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like we could be on totally different platforms. We could be on like just an independent contractor, like maybe like the next Barstool or something like that.
Yeah.
Or the NFL could crack down and just. Like fuck you,
end it.
Bye.
Yeah,
it's either or. So like, the more you try and think about that, the more anxiety I feel like I get.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
That's very. Flemmo and I, when we were making this podcast, instead of calling it sports therapy, we were thinking about calling it the Overthinkers podcast because we play that game where you sit back and go, well, play all these what if scenarios that have nothing to do with what's going on, and then you just drive yourself crazy.
Mm-hmm. All these rabbit holes. I do that all the time. So, trust me, I can completely relate.
Well, there's something that we all have that's very similar. We're all different. We all grew up in different places. We're all different, but then there's something that we all have that's similar, and that's part of it. This desire to create content, this natural, like it's like what it. I don't know. It's just cool to think about.
It's a melting pot. I mean, with like sports and YouTube in general, you get totally different experiences, totally different viewpoints, totally different ideologies and thoughts, and, just perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like brings people to YouTube. Like they don't want to see like stuff on ESPN because it's the same thing nearly every hour. With YouTube, I mean, you get something different from KTO, you get something different from Flemlo, you get something different from me, you get something different from everyone else. And I think that's what drives people. And I feel like that's why it's been a rolling ball that's been increasing in momentum over the past couple of years.
That's so cool to think about like that. And I think the more that I hear other content creators say that, it makes me feel more empowered. Because when I'm thinking like to myself and I'm by myself, it's like I don't even know if what I'm thinking is accurate. But then I hear like Flemmo and I talk, and then we have so many similarities that it gives me peace and comfort. And then hearing you say things that we both have thought of, it just keeps adding to that. So
like I'm actually glad you two have the same anxieties that I do, because I thought I was like the only one that's thinking, oh no, what if this like falls apart? I'm glad I'm not the only one saying that.
But it's like if you're not thinking that, like, I mean, I don't know how you can do what we do specifically on YouTube and not at least have that thought. You know what I'm saying?
It's very fragile, I feel like. I mean, there could be one little stiff wind, and it's gone.
As much as people who watch us think that we've got it going well, it's like I check my email every morning, like with that little thing in the back of my mind that says I could see an email there right now that says it's like over, like it's the NFL, they're cracking down there, it's a lawsuit, all this stuff, like anything, which is it's not the right way to think, but that's the way that it almost comes around because it's like they have the ultimate power in this scenario. At least maybe that's not even true because YouTube has like their copyright policies and stuff and the fair use.
I mean, if YouTube ever get to deal with the NFL, then I'll be concerned because that's when I think they might start cracking down.
Yeah.
Because that's when we're gonna get like them crazy little knick-knack percentages. Yeah. All right, so we need this percentage of this video, and every time you do this, you got to pay us this, and they'll present it as like a good thing. But when we look at the bottom line, it'll be a big step back.
There was a thing with that. I think with the NBA, like and their like creators program, I think there was a huge issue with that. Like they like had to take like a huge cut of revenues. Like they couldn't allow them to talk about certain issues. Like
they took some channels down, bro. It was some channels that disappeared after that. Yeah. Like, because I watched a lot of them NBA channels because I'm an NBA fan too. And there was channels that just went away after that whole situation, bro. I remember that. I feel like we all got like, you know what I'm saying? We got like more of a hustler spirit to where I honestly believe like if YouTube went down within a few months, we'll figure it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I really believe that. We'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
There's demand for like all three of our products, I feel like.
For sure. We'll definitely figure it out, man. So we'll still be around in some capacity, for sure.
You know what I think is interesting is you say football is king, but then you look at like views, and it feels like basketball dominates YouTube.
Basketball, I feel like, is more of a younger audience. I feel like
exactly.
I know, like
Yep.
Like NFL, I feel like is more college age in terms of its average viewership.
Yeah, what's your demographic?
I would say like it's majority like college age. Like I haven't checked the analytics as of late, but I feel like it's equal between like 15 and 34. So it's about like roughly the same amount of that. Oh. But like I don't need to double check it again. I haven't really checked the viewership that much.
I do have a question.
Yeah, because basketball, NBA videos definitely, they get more spin. I was going to say that earlier. Like, I feel like it's who's watching. Because we know the NFL is bigger, but on YouTube, the NBA is bigger.
Because the NBA, you know they market their personalities really well, and they know the social media game. Like, they are experts at that.
Yeah.
Do you, what is your, like, sports, like, if you like, rank them, favorite to least favorite as far as what you talk about?
Personally, I love talking hockey. That's my favorite sport to talk about. I could like wax poetic about hockey all day long. But I mean, football would probably be number 2, in between baseball. Basketball is probably my least. It's just like the NBA just doesn't really excite me, unfortunately. Like I love the shit show franchises, but that's really about it.
So, what's your favorite league?
The NHL. I said like if you watch like a hockey game, like just the grace, the fluidity, the skill.
I know we talked about last time we were in person. We talked about maybe not in person, maybe it was on the dumpster fire, but we talked about like going to a hockey game, like a playoff hockey game, and how great it is.
Oh, that is a fantastic experience if you ever get the chance.
Why so? What's up?
It's the intensity of the crowd, the spirit, just the level of play on the field, the rink. Just becomes more intense. It's like something you have to literally be there to experience. You can get a little of it on TV, but being in the crowd of that situation, it's like being in a playoff football game. Like, like a conference championship game. Like, you have to be there to really understand and appreciate the sort of intensity and emotion that comes into it.
Man, it's funny. I don't think I've ever had a better experience at a game than I've had watching a game on TV. I can't remember a single game I was at where I was like, yo, this is the best way to watch the game. Like,
I think,
ever.
Well, so, Flumlo, I think you're, the way you view it is like you like to see the X's and O's almost play out. So, like watching on TV gives you that best perspective. But at the game, it's much harder, especially at a football game, it's much harder to tell what's going on. because if you're
It's
so
just a
far
bunch
away.
Of drunk motherfuckers who
But
don't know what
that's
the
almost
hell
the
they're
point of
talking
going to the
about.
game. It's like
Screaming,
you can
feed Zeke. I'm like, it's 3rd and 20. Feed Zeke.
That's fandom though, dude.
I'm like, bro, I'm finna go home, bro. I'm gonna watch this shit on mute in my crib.
It's
bro.
a different
These people
feel
tripping.
for even where you're sitting in the crowd. Like when you sit lower, you get more of the speed, you get more of like the in-person interaction. When you sit above, you get to view it more tactically. You get to see like different formations, different views. Okay, like say for example, if you were watching the Raiders-Jets game and you see that all-out blitz cover 0. And then you see Henry Ruggs come out Hail Mary on a rookie cornerback. You see that.
I'd have been screaming that from the second they lined up in that.
I'm just sitting there in shock. I'm like, what?
What the hell
the
is
play
going
before
on?
you should have scored too. The play before he
They
threw a bomb.
overthrew Aguilar.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer. I had him starting on my fantasy team.
That's
It's
tough.
so crazy. Greg Williams is such a. Because even when he was on the
should not get another
Browns.
NFL job again.
Get him
I
out of
mean,
here.
Don't
bro.
get me
He
wrong.
gotta
I
get
mean, you
outta
probably
here,
have a
bro.
positive opinion on him, Flem, because he had
I
that
don't.
decent stretch with the Browns. But
Oh, you mean me?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, you mean KT? I
I'm
was
sorry,
about to say, I
Flem.
don't.
Sorry,
fuck with
I meant to say.
Yeah, you're
I don't mess with him at all.
Yeah.
I remember him from Bonnie Gate. I remember him from everything. I remember him
Bonnie
from
Gate.
is like negative.
But
Yeah.
hey, Tree, I wanted to ask you. Okay, I want you to tell me where your favorite seat is for a hockey game, and then favorite seat for a football game, and why.
Favorite seat for a hockey game? Damn. I always liked the bleacher seats. Like, especially, like, there was, when it was called Mellon Arena, they had these really cheap seats that were called the F row, I think it was. And it was like this big, like, bleacher. They were cheap, but you were allowed to see the game tactically. When you're closer to the rink, you get more of the speed, I feel like. But you don't really see much of the game.
Yeah.
They're both
Yeah.
good experiences, but I like to watch games maybe tactically, see it unfold from that perspective. Football, it's a little different. I mean, you can get a different view from each perspective. I like sitting up higher up as well because, once again, you get to view it tactically. You get to see stuff that, like, you can't really see, like, from below, even though you get more, like of an in-person experience, I feel like, from lower. So it depends on a preference, I feel like.
I always my thing with just looking at football, I always thought college football is better in person because you can't see the issues as much as on TV, and then NFL it's better on TV because I feel like you can really feel the passion at a college football game. You get the band, the college kids, like the rowdies, and then the
Even
NFL, yeah.
Yeah, college football, you have like 100,000 plus screaming fans in a place like Happy Valley, Michigan, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Alabama. You don't get that at the NFL level.
No, it's different. Yeah. What is the best football stadium you've ever been to?
I'd probably say Jerry World. I mean, that was a cathedral.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That place.
Yeah. It was dope.
Just the sweet experience. And you have your own private bathroom it's like two steps away. Just the food and drinks. It's like that doesn't compare to no matter where you're sitting.
Not even the sweet experience. Just looking around the stadium itself, it's like cavernous in terms of how huge it is.
Yeah.
Like even Heinz Field doesn't even hold a candle to that. I'm sitting there like, whoa.
Heinz Field is what, like almost 20 years old?
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. Like, it's not a bad stadium, but it doesn't really, like, set itself separate by any real part of the imagination.
Have you been to a lot of, like, games in person?
Heinz Field, a little bit. Not too many, per se, but, like, the only other real stadiums I've been to were, Jerry World and the Superdome for the Steelers game in 18, I think.
Are you like a diehard Steelers fan? Like you watch every play of every game kind of thing?
Not really. Not as much anymore. I used to be a big fan 10, 15, 20 years ago. But since I've started YouTube, I feel like I follow football more in a macro perspective.
Yeah.
Like I follow the game itself. Especially since I've been older. I feel like I've become more a fan of the game itself than a specific team.
I do have a question about like when you're just so consumed in making, I'm just going to say specifically football content where you're talking about it weekly, you have to constantly be editing and looking at stuff. Has it ruined the football experience at all for you?
Not really. I mean, you kind of get into that routine after a while. I mean, most of the time you're like I'll have like Red Zone reffing on my TV back here. So like, that's how I feel like I got my football fix nowadays.
Nice.
Does it bother you though? Like, you ever watching a game and you think about work?
A little bit.
Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, most of the stuff I'm just like randomly posting stuff on Twitter just for like shits and giggles. Yeah. That's all I really do on Sundays.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that Twitter's good for, I feel like. But I mean, it creates a different feel, I feel like. Like, once in a while, like, as of late, I've usually gone to, like, a family's house to watch a Steeler game. Like, my brother's a big Steelers fan, so, like, I'll watch it with him.
With the Twitter thing, do you think... So, would you prefer to, like, be watching games and talking on Twitter because of, like, the connection and, like, just talking about it with people? Is that
a little bit of a connection, I feel like. Most of the time, I just do it for, like, you know... That's because part of me enjoys doing it.
Yeah.
But also it gets that live reaction, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it creates a different element and wrinkle. Like you see like maybe like Adam Schefter, Dov Kleeman, Ian Rappaport, Warren Sharp. You know, guys like that, like going out throughout the game. It creates like a different sort of feel to a Sunday.
Yeah, you really seem to embrace like the whole picture of like, you look at an NFL Sunday and it's just like the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Every
it's a
game,
grand scale. I mean,
every person that talks about it.
Oh yeah, it's a festivity. Like, as I said, like since I've started, like, you know, you kind of follow it in the macro perspective. Which, I mean, in terms of like you follow team by team, you get more finer points, which I'm afraid I kind of miss sometimes.
You say that, and like I'll hear you talk about it. And you seem like you know a lot about what's going on, about every team. Like, you'll know, like, details about the owners of every team. Mm-hmm. You'll be saying things about, like, the inner workings of the front offices. And I'm just like, this dude knows everything. Like, do you do a ton of research?
A little bit. I also talk with, like, fans of, like, certain teams. Like, they'll DM me. Like, we'll talk back and forth as well. So I'll get a feel for them as well from that.
Do you think your knowledge of the game, because you now have to focus on it so much, has just like gone up since you started YouTube?
I feel like it's helped a good bit. I mean, it's helped me with team histories at least.
Yeah.
So I get that understanding of like, okay, why do the Los Angeles Chargers have this huge issue with special teams? Or say, why do the Atlanta Falcons have this like propensity to agonizingly blow leads? Or, for example, why is the Cleveland Browns having a winning record for the first time in 2007 this great moment for them? Yeah. Like, you have to get that sort of perspective, I feel like. I feel that's what I hopefully will kind of get into.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because my perspective of, like, making videos so often about football is it kind of numbs the whole game for me in a way that, like, I don't get the same joy out of it unless I'm watching specifically the Browns. So I can get very much into the Browns games, but any other game I can put on and I can watch and it's cool, but I'm not like on the edge of my seat as much as I used to be. And
a little bit. I mean, I feel like a lot of that too is that the NFL, like, it has so many close finishes nowadays that it's kind of like, okay, who has the ball last? So that could be a little bit of it too.
Yeah.
But I feel like with the Steelers, too, like, it kind of gets, like, a little, like, like, okay. If they do well, great. If not, oh well.
Yeah. Or if the Steelers make a run and they're, like, in the Super Bowl, are you full, like, on board Steelers fan kind of still, or are you just kind of watching to see the show?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know how I'll feel about that. Because, like, I was skeptical of them from the beginning of the year. Like, I'm still surprised they're 11-0, to be honest with you.
If they finish undefeated, or is it going to be a big deal for Pittsburgh?
Oh, yeah. Dude, this whole city will just be on a Super Bowl train, and they'll be obnoxious again. I'll be like, oh, God, here we go.
So you've never really been a fan where you're part of, like, the hoopla? You're just kind of like
I was a little bit, like, when I was in high school, college. Yeah. I was a bit of that, so.
How old are you now?
I'm 32.
32. Flemma, how old are you?
Same age, 32.
And then, how old is 5 Points?
He's like 43.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I know.
Yeah, we got to get him on soon because it's so interesting.
I mean, to be fair, like the stuff we do, we can't ride it when you're 20. So you need that experience to really like.
It's like fine wine.
Get the feel for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I feel different than you guys because I started this channel when I was like 21. So I started it as like just like a passionate fan of the game, and it's sort of evolved, but it's still like I'm still in that, like I'm still young. So
yeah,
I'm younger, like I'm 7 years younger than you guys. So I don't know how much 7 years changes, but there's definitely like a maturity aspect that I know that maybe I'll get, but it's like different. I'm just younger.
Yeah, you should. I was a completely different human 7 years ago.
I mean, you see like a lot of like YouTubers when they're like 20, 21, like they'll be distraught over like low views or like people disagreeing with them, and it's like they don't have life experience yet. And that's why they're feeling like that. It's like YouTube's not the world. And once you get that like life experience, I feel like YouTube's just like, okay, if it works out great, if not, they'll just do something else.
I think your experience in the food industry, that go a long way, man. Like working that type of job before YouTube, dealing with pissed off customers and, you don't have a set pay. You got to make tips and you're basically working on commission. You have to bill your check every week. So a lot of that stuff just carry over. So I feel like that's a big advantage.
To be completely honest, I mean, I feel like I learned more about myself, life, the world, and people around me than I did in 4 years of college. Just because you were able to get that life experience.
Yeah, for sure.
You were a waiter?
Yeah, I waited tables.
What kind of restaurant was it?
It was a combination of different restaurants. Like I worked at like fast casual. I worked at like a sports bar. Last time it was a place called CityWorks in Pittsburgh. Like, I mean, it cranked. Like, come like football Sunday, college Saturday, packed to the gills.
Do you
like the revenue?
I was just asking, do you like that like high intensity environment to work in, or does that stress you out?
It varies. Like you get an adrenaline rush from it. Like I don't know if I could do it now because I've been out of the game for so long, and plus like with like downtown Pittsburgh, I mean, most people are still working from home, and it's just like you can't really have that same feel of like a totally crowded bar. I mean, it's stressful, but at the same time, it's like it's not for everyone though. Like there are a lot of people that'll burn out really quickly, and that's understandable. Like I burned out a couple times as well.
Well, I was on a cook line at my dad's restaurant, and it would get really busy, especially Friday night, Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
And it's weird because sometimes it's really overwhelming, but other times you get into like a flow, and it's just like almost enjoyable. Like 6 hours goes by or something, and you were just locked in doing your job.
Get that groove.
And there was something about that that's like to be desired. Like I like that, but then at the end of it, it's like I'm glad I'm not in that.
And the thing with like back of house, front of house, like you can get a lot of issues there. Drugs, alcohol, different type of mental health issues. So I mean, it is a very strenuous job, and you got to be careful about it.
Have you ever do you have any interest in like the old stuff, like historical stuff, or are you more of just like current stuff?
I've done historical stuff, yeah. Like I loved history like in high school, so like I've done a decent bit. Like most of the stuff I did during the lockdowns, when sports was paused, was mostly historical.
Yeah.
Marty Schottenheimer, Mike Keenan, John Van de Velde. One of the ones I want to do is a retrospective of the 1993 Houston Oilers, the greatest football soap opera of all time.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like if you actually look up that year, it's insane.
About it.
93 Oilers.
Oh yeah, dude! Oilers. Seriously, look it up.
Okay.
Like it's just like mind-boggling. Like it makes Days of Our Steelers look like a minor comeuppance.
Days of Our Steelers.
Oh yeah, like I mean, like the owner literally told them the year before, like, hey, if you don't make the Super Bowl, I'm blowing it up. It's a salary cap year. There was like fighting on the sidelines. There was quarterback controversy. There's tragedy throughout the year. And then they lose to the Chiefs. And then Bud Adams literally blows it up. He trades Warren Moon to the Vikings. Buddy Ryan, the defensive coordinator, goes to the Cardinals. A bunch of players leave. They completely implode the next year and go 2-14. Damn. Dead serious. Exactly. It's insane.
Well, I do want to hear your thoughts on more of like the season stuff. So I do want to start or like transition into that. What are your thoughts on the Browns so far?
I had them going to the playoffs this year because I felt like they don't have pressure. They still have the talent, and I feel like they have better coaching this year. And I know a lot of people were skeptical about it. I kind of was too, but at the same time, they are really meshing together as a cohesive unit. They have a really strong offensive line that they didn't have last year. They have, like more depth throughout the positions. They haven't really had many distractions. I mean, the only real bad thing that's happened was, the Chubb injury and OBJ. But Mayfield is like, he's very hit or miss. When he hits, but like when he misses, it's like, it's kind of there. I mean, I'm really happy for you guys. As I said, you needed this.
Yeah, I've been waiting. It's been weird. It's been such a weird few years.
Yeah, when you go with when everyone thinks 2019 is going to be the year they become the Browns, and then 2020 they expect nothing, and hey, look, they're really good.
What do you think is the long-term Mayfield? If you had to make a prediction on his career going forward.
This is a great question.
That is a good question. I feel like he might go to a different team after a couple years. I feel like if he's going to go anywhere, I could see him going to the Dallas Cowboys. Got that connection with Jerry Jones in Oklahoma. I feel like he's the kind of star that would really thrive in a big media market because of the personality that he has. But I said, I don't know if his long-term future really is in Cleveland. But that's not because of Baker. I feel like that's more because of, his personality and how he wants to be the best.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's really hard for me to give up my fandom. So, especially when I see a game like yesterday where he throws 4 touchdowns in the first half and every pass is just perfect.
Oh yeah, he was balling.
So, when you see that, and us Browns fans aren't used to seeing that kind of football. It's like, would this organization really give up on that? I don't know. I could see them just throwing a crazy contract at him and maybe overpaying, but at this point, is it really worth going back and finding another guy, or just
unless you get a certified guy, say maybe they go after Dak Prescott in the offseason, or maybe they find or they stumble into another great quarterback talent in the draft.
Who would you rather have, Dak or Baker?
I'd take Dak. I'm going to take Dak. That's easy for me.
Oh, I don't even want to know what
I'm taking Dak. Dak's a better leader, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's stable. You know what I mean? Whereas Baker is a little more...
Yeah, he's more up and down, more roller coastery.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's the reason.
I also think... I think Dak's ceiling is lower than Baker's, but I think his consistency is better than Baker's. So
he has a higher floor.
I agree with that.
If you put Dak in this offense right now, I think the Browns probably have around the same record, just because I think their team is still trying to figure out how to win. And so Baker hasn't been really the reason why they've won or lost. It's more of been their team just their 3 losses were weird.
Yeah, they got crushed by the Steelers, and I expected that to be really close.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I really hope the Steelers are 15-0 going into Week 17, and the Browns going to play them, because it's what happens then? Do they go for the 16-0, or do they take that loss because they got the 1 seed?
I feel like they'll probably, if they have the number 1 seed locked up, they'll probably rest their starters.
And if that's the
Ben's
case,
been kind of hobbled for a little bit.
Yeah. That's going to be so interesting. What are your thoughts on the Steelers?
They're doing a lot better than I expected them to be. I expected them to go, 8-8, 9-7, because I didn't expect Ben to return to, what he was.
Yeah.
I figured the elbow surgery would have taken him a good chunk out of him, but it really hasn't. He still has issues with the deep ball. He throws it into a lot of bad coverages, just trying to play hero ball.
Yeah.
But he really does good with the short-range game and the mid-range game. And his wide receivers are really solid. Juju Smith-Schuster's our 4th-string wideout right now.
It's wild.
I know. He's gone at the end of the year. Not because of anything Juju's doing. It's just excess goods.
Yeah. Ben's command, bro. Ben's command of y'all's offense is amazing to me. When I watch, I always feel even when he plays bad and takes ridiculous risk, I just always feel he in control of what's happening out there. You know what I'm saying? And I don't get that feel with a lot of QBs.
What do you think of the Bengals?
Joe Burrow is a talent. And I mean, you've got a really nice quarterback there, man. I mean, the way you're seeing him go, I mean, I'm just worried about that injury. It's like literally the same injury that Carson Palmer had. I mean,
well, Carson Palmer looked better when he eventually got back, though. He looked better to me with the Cardinals than he ever looked with the Bengals. Like his footwork was.
Like it took him a couple teams too.
That's true. But he went to the Raiders. Does that count?
Raiders were still like a mess under Al Davis back then too.
Randy Moss struggled with the Raiders. So.
Yeah. What do you think of this? Is kind of a random switch, but I want to go back to college football. What do you think of like the system in place, the playoff? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
They need to expand it. I feel like they'd be better off doing it to 8 teams, but I don't know how they do it with, especially with like doing it week by week and the ability to protect the players.
Yeah,
because I feel like 4 teams might be a little too small right now.
Yeah,
I can see them maybe expanding to 6 and giving the top 2 teams a bye week. Give them a sort of advantage.
Yeah. It feels like it's always the same teams.
Mm-hmm. Usually Alabama, Clemson, Georgia.
Yeah.
Ohio
State.
Notre Dame. Yep.
It's tough.
Yep.
I come from I was a bigger college football fan than NFL fan, but the playoff, it kind of has taken my interest in the game. Like it's lower. Like I don't watch college football as much anymore.
And college football has just been a mess this year in terms of cancellations, suspensions, all the delays, the opt-outs. It's not the same game this year.
It's bad.
Nowhere near it.
Damn, I haven't watched a single college football game this year.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I watched one half of an Alabama game, and then that's it.
Like, I mean, you have some good stories out of there too. Like, Kyle Trask in Florida, Mac Jones in Alabama, Coastal Carolina, BYU.
Yeah, that's true.
But like even then, I feel like more people are focusing on the down teams like Penn State, LSU, Michigan. There are a couple other really struggling teams. I think Wisconsin's not doing too well.
Going back to the NFL, what is your overall predictions of Super Bowl and who's going to be in it?
I know beginning of the year I was going to say the State Farm Bowl, Chiefs versus Packers. NFC is really tough to predict because a lot of them have issues that I don't know if they really take it to the next level. Like the Saints have had some really, really ugly wins, and I don't know how healthy Breeze is going to be and how effective he's going to be. The Packers, they've been blown out by some random teams. It depends how Aaron Rodgers plays. The NFC West, Seattle got exposed by the Giants. I thought they would do well, but they're having issues. AFC, I think it goes Chiefs just because they just look complete right now. And they can adapt their play styles to what it is. Even against Denver, Chiefs not running at a full offensive scheme, they can clamp down and play conservative, hold on to the ball if they need to because they're just built in such a versatile way that they can adjust. And I'm not saying that against the Steelers, but the Steelers have looked pretty ugly the last couple weeks.
An ugly 11-0.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I know, right? It's crazy. But that Baltimore game, it was just I didn't feel like they even really cared to be there. I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta agree. I think the Chiefs are about the only team I feel confident in running the tables, whereas the NFC is just it could be anyone.
Oh yeah, it's a coin flip. You could literally have even the New York Giants just come out of nowhere again and make the Super Bowl. It's just that unpredictable right now.
I'm almost hoping that they finish 6-10 or 5-11 and make it and win a couple of games in the playoffs. That would be perfect.
Yeah. Honestly, I want the Washington football team to win the division just for the memes that'll come out of it.
That's true. That
is the ultimate goal of mine.
The football team goes 6-10 and wins their division. Runs the tables.
Boom.
Yes.
That's the most 2020.
See Dan Snyder just alone on a pedestal holding Lombardi. It's really this happened.
That's the only way the 2020 season ends. Is that?
Yeah, that's pure 2020.
That would be so perfect.
All right, fellas, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. I have no idea what episode number this is, but we'll address all of that at some other point, man. Thank y'all for coming through. We'll holler at you next time. Peace.
So.